Hi everyone, welcome back to the sewing room. It's Amy here, and today I thought we could have a little chatty catch up about what I've been working on. This project has been about 2 years in the making. Yeah, gosh, a long time. It all started when I saw this dress on the DDE account on Instagram. That's the Daily Dress Edit. Unfortunately, that account's no longer active, but I saw this Brora embroidered dress. It's hot pink with orange embroidery, a really fun, vivid combination, right? And it's kind of got stripes made by the rows of embroidery stitches. It's a cute little shirt dress with a flat rounded collar, long sleeves, gathered skirt, and then has lots of different eye-catching details that really got me excited. And then I started planning this, figuring out what colour could I do it in. I knew I wanted to use trims and laces and embroidery stitches. I'm very fortunate that my machine has a lot of stitches included. I've got the Janome QDC 4300, and here's the full list of stitches. Lots of amazing decorative embroidery stitches. You might also remember I used a scallop stitch on this project, and there's a video to go along with that. And it really made me want to do more. So I set about figuring out my fabric. I went hunting in a few different fabric shops and eventually found an amazing lightweight linen look, or it's like a linen mix, hot pink fabric from Avacan in the remnant section. So amazingly, I found a 2.5 meter piece, which I thought would work perfectly for this, but has meant that now I've cut everything out. There's no going back. If I've ruined this project, then I'm going to have to start again. I think the fabric was about £6-8. It really wasn't a lot, because you might remember I've mentioned it before, in Avacan you pay by weight. So each fabric type has a different price per kilogram, and then you take it up to the front and they weigh your fabric and give you a total price for it. The remnants can be cut as long as you leave at least 1 meter on the remnant. This was a really good, perfect size remnant. I was very pleased when I saw it. Lovely, bright, happy colour, linen-y kind of bark texture to it, so it's got lots of depth. So I started by taking this McCall's shirt dress pattern and decided to hack it to suit my needs. So I removed the gathered yoke from the front bodice and drafted a plain front that's slightly boxy but has no darts for fitting or anything like that. A very clean bodice front. And then in the back I left the gathered yoke to again add some fullness, make it not too fitted, and then reshape the sleeve to match that armhole a bit better, because I didn't like the fit on the armhole. So let's have a closer look at that toile. I mocked it all up in a bed sheet, and I just used what my machine was threaded up with, which was black thread at the time. I actually really love the contrast of the black and white. It makes me want to do a similar project in these colours. And I played around with the different stitch settings. So in the end, I went for a sort of spot, a sort of like diamond, an open scallop, and then a fully satin stitch scallop. And I still have lots of different stitch settings that I could introduce, maybe lower on the skirt as well. There's so much fun to be had with the stitches on my machine. It'd be great to incorporate as many of them as possible, and really working on how to get the alignment across the sleeve piece as well, same as I would with a striped fabric. Getting a match across the body is a really great technique to make your stripes look continuous. So I want to do the same with my embroidery stitches all around the body. So yeah, lots of maths and planning of the spacing and drawing some guidelines to stitch along so I don't go off centre. That's been really fun. And then for the placket, the original dress has sort of a chevron stitch going down and then buttonholes embroidered on top. I was quite surprised at that, because I would have thought embroidery on top of embroidery might be quite bulky for the buttonholes. So I had a quick play with how that might look. I'm not completely sold, I might do something where the embroidery is either side of the buttonholes, so it doesn't have too much bulk. I'm not getting into danger. I'm going to play around with that a little more as I approach doing those bands. Here is the first toile on my body. So it did have a few fit issues, but I was excited to press ahead and practice the stitching, so we can sort of like accept those but ignore them. So obviously there's some issues going on with the shoulder seam, and then the neck being too high. You can sort of see the pencil line, that's where my collarbone is. So the seam line needs to be much lower for that collar, closer to my seam line, closer to my collarbone. And it was ever so slightly cropped, so I needed to add some length to the waist. But I couldn't resist adding the rows of stitching. You can see I had a lot of fun, and then I made a note of the stitch setting on my machine so I wouldn't forget. And then I started drawing in lines to confirm how I would want it to run around the entire body. So the stitch would go around the sleeve as well at the correct distance. And what you can do when there's no dart on the side seam, I can measure everything down from the underarm point to make sure that those lines are going to match up as I stitch them and then assemble the dress. So I was very excited. I stopped, as you can see, I didn't take them all the way around. It takes a long time, as we've talked about. And then I kept tinkering with the idea of something up here where that yoke seam used to be, how high to bring my stitching. So I'm looking forward to experimenting with that. And then after this, I did think maybe it was a little tight. So I'll show you my second toile. So I did a dartless FBA to add some space back in to the bust area. This helps the sleeve feel a bit more easier to maneuver. And yeah, you can see it's that lovely clean finish still. The yoke at the back looks good. It's going to be a slightly breezier dress, and then I'll just wear either a tie belt or a buckle belt if I want to cinch it in. But I think it's going to look really good when that collar's on and it doesn't look as tight, the lovely rounded flat collar. I'll probably wear it open most of the time anyway. But if I did want to button it closed, I don't want it to be too tight. So yeah, it's really coming together. And then I left that to one side for a bit while I pondered what colour embroidery to put on top of my pink fabric. Now I could have gone orange, just like the original, but I had about four or five spools of the same coloured green thread in my stash. And I thought, that's giving me an idea. And then I also had this lovely ladder insertion trim that I got this huge roll of from my mum during one of her bargain shopping trips at the car boot sale. And again, that was the same shade of green. And I was thinking, oh, maybe I could incorporate this ladder lace. It'll all come together beautifully. I made myself a little swatch. It's only little because I really didn't have a lot of fabric to play with. So this was before I even got started cutting anything out. And it's just a cute little swatch with ladder lace insertion in there, a bit of embroidery stitches, some pleats and some ribbon just to see how they would all go together. I found this ribbon at my local boys store. It's the perfect shade. And then I also found some other trims in my boys store in the same hot pinks. I've bought some of those in case I want to play around with using those as well. A rickrack in velvet, hot pink velvet rickrack, and a velvet ribbon, plus obviously the green grosgrain ribbon that ties in beautifully, and then the hot pink lace trim that I want to use maybe either at the hem or sort of up near as a faux yoke kind of seam line. That could be really pretty. I just love all these elements together. I'm probably going to have to stop and do some editing and dial it back, not use all of them as much as I would love to. I don't want it to be too over the top. I want it to really showcase the effort and not look too busy. And then I need to decide on buttons, whether to go for pink buttons or green buttons. I've got options for both. I did also wonder about self-covered pink buttons, but I don't think I'm going to have enough scraps for that, unfortunately. So it'll probably have to be a shop bought button. But yeah, I think it's going to be really fun. It's definitely going to be very bright. It's a good job I'm not afraid of bright colours. I also need to play around with how I'm going to add the embroidery to the collar. I want to create something really fun, and I'm trying to decide whether to just edge the outer edge of the collar or do something that's a bit more filled in with lots of rows of stitching on the collar. There's so many ideas for this project. It's really inspiring me. And that's why I'm not worried about rushing it. Sometimes it's really nice to have a slow project that you can just keep working away on for, weeks, days, weeks, months. I'm a very fast sewist, as you probably have guessed. I have to try and force myself to slow down sometimes. And this project is definitely doing that. Partly because the embroidery is so off-putting, but also because I want to thoughtfully choose each row and each position and each detail. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So I put it aside and left it for nearly a year. And then I finally gave myself a kick up the butt this year. It was supposed to be in my Make 9 last year, but clearly that didn't happen. So I gave myself a kick up the butt. I cut it all out, cut out all the dress, assembled everything with French seams, each in component parts. So I've made the bodice, I've done the sleeves, I've done the skirt panels, but I haven't joined anything together because it'll be much easier to add the embroidery while they're all separate and then bring them all together at the end. So now I'm going to explain why I think I might have ruined it. When I was doing the toile and I used a plain lightweight cotton, it was like an old bed sheet, all the embroidery stitches went on really well, apart from one, the scallop stitch, which is so gorgeous. I really wanted to keep it in. That one started to pucker slightly as I was sewing it. So I kept thinking, I'll stabilise it in some way, either with tissue paper underneath that could be torn away or interfacing or something like that, and kept that in the back of the mind. So then started swatching on my actual pink fabric, and the puckering was even worse. It was, I guess, because it's more of a floaty fabric, it's got a bit more silkiness and drape than the plain cotton. Every stitch I did started to pucker, so I knew I definitely needed some kind of stabilizer. So I stitched them with paper underneath, paper on top. Neither of that worked. I interfaced a very thin strip of interfacing just behind the stitching line. That didn't work. So I went on this Google deep dive and I was recommended Broththread. I think that's the right way to say it. Wash away stabilizer for embroidery. They also do embroidery threads, and they got very good reviews. So I was like, this is the answer. This is the answer to the problem. So I stitched up a little swatch with that, and the stability was perfect. So I cut some thin strips and got started on my bodice, and placing the thin strip underneath, top stitching along my pre-marked stitching line, I managed to complete 2 full rows of stitching all the way around the bodice. Gosh, it takes ages. Trust believe me that embroidery stitches are so slow. I got through all of that. And then I thought, you haven't actually tested washing out the stabilizer? What, are you mad? So I just ploughed ahead. So I took my little swatch and I went to the sink and I washed it out. And it just, in front of my eyes, it disappeared. It was absolutely fantastic. Loved seeing that result. So I was very happy, and I put that on the radiator to dry, and then carried on with my project. And I got about halfway through my 3rd row of stitching on the bodice, and I thought, well, now you haven't tested what it looks like when it's dry, so go and find that swatch. Oh my God. I was absolutely panicking. This swatch was stiff as plastic almost. It was completely full of glue on the back. I didn't understand where the glue had come from. I guess it's actually just residue from the wash away stabilizer, not really glue, but it had left this glossy, shimmery, glue-like texture on the back of the swatch. It was stiff as a board. I was absolutely devastated. I thought, I've sewn 3 rows of the project with this. If it's going to wash out and completely ruin the drape of my dress, I'm screwed. Had a little break, tried not to cry, put it down, and kept Googling the reviews, and the reviews just kept saying washes out perfectly, no trace left behind. So I thought, maybe I just didn't wash it out properly. Maybe I didn't use enough soap, detergent, and I was doing it by hands. It wasn't the hottest water. So made a new little swatch, and I'll show you here. I did it in blue this time so you can see a little bit better. And I threw that in the washing machine this time, and I let the washing machine and the detergent and the hot water do its magic. And thank God, it's so much better. It's back to its lovely, soft, fluid drape. So I can carry on stitching the bodice without panicking too much. I now have to decide, am I going to try and wash out each of the pieces individually before I assemble them, or wait till the very end and wash out the entire dress? I'd love to know your thoughts on this. All help is appreciated. This is a completely new to me style of project. I've been sewing for 15 years, and kind of one of my challenges to myself is to keep trying new things and pushing with new techniques and interesting ideas. So this is why I really want this project to work. I've been planning it so long, and I was really loving how it was looking so far. So thank goodness we're back on track. So the other thing that's been slowing down my sewing this year is I haven't really been that well. I've been ill twice already this year, and we're barely underway, are we? And I'm still feeling quite poorly from the last lot. I'm still quite lightheaded. I get dizzy if I stand up for too long. So I haven't really wanted to do much sewing, especially like if I look down for too long as well, that makes me lightheaded. So I've been feeling a bit weak and rubbishy. So I'm looking forward to when that can pass and I can do a bit more intense sewing, because I do have some other projects that I will be finishing before this one. I have another Fabric Godmother Ambassador project with a really cool fabric print. And then I'm finally making the DVF 2000 wrap dress in a gorgeous Ponte from Patterns and Plains. So you'll see those soon. But yeah, I'll keep coming back to this project. And I'm looking forward to feeling a lot better so I can sew a lot more. So there you go, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this sneak peek into my process. I can't wait to share the finished dress with you, but it probably won't be till later this spring. Like I say, I do a little bit of stitching and then I have to put it down for a while. So it's going to be a slow and steady project. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you again soon. If you like this video, why not subscribe? There's nearly 7,000 of you now, which is so exciting. And I'll be back again soon to share more adventures from the sewing room, tips and techniques, fabric hauls, and pattern inspiration.